For sure, there's no such thing as saying, don't trade that guy, and having that be unconditional. I'll bet I could come up with conditions in which I would trade you-know-who. Not going to happen. But there's never 100%er in this. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Kyle Dubas did a one-on-one interview with Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This was during the NHL scouting combine up in Buffalo over the weekend. And the guy, he's got some Jim Rutherford in him. And I don't mean that in any way except that JR was not afraid to just tell you some stuff. He wasn't worried about the repercussions, whether it was from the inside or the outside. And he wasn't worried about having this complete veil of secrecy over his own concepts. And I delineate there because I have made it clear to you on recent shows that he doesn't want anybody else doing that. If it's coming from him, it's okay. Coming from somebody else, not okay. So, for example, when Taylor asked him, is he interested in bringing back any of the restricted free agents that the Penguins are about to have, or for that matter, the unrestricted free agents, he went right ahead and named the name, said he wants Boko Imama back. He wants him back. Doesn't mean he has it done. Doesn't mean he's going to get it done. I happen to believe that he will. But just to name a name there is not the norm. That's not standard policy for general managers. So keep that in mind anytime you see, hear, or read anything from Dubas as it relates to potential future transactions or even just an approach that he might be adopting. He's going to blurt stuff out, not clumsily, not by accident, but just because he doesn't worry about whether or not it's known. Now, I transitioned from that purposefully to Bryan, Rust, and Rickard, Rakell. When you're thinking of trades that the Penguins can make this summer that would be more in line with what we've seen over the past year and change, as opposed to what I think everybody's kind of hoping for, meaning that the coming NHL season will mean something in Pittsburgh, those two are going to be the flashpoints in this. Why? Well, there's the obvious stuff. They're both coming off career years. They both just played with Sid, which didn't exactly hurt their causes, but 30 goals is 30 goals. And when you look at the complete games that Rust and Rakell offer, in addition to being great guys, team players, and unlike Erik Karlsson and some others on the roster not having any sort of no movement clauses attached, yeah, there are obviously possibilities in which one or both could get traded. Now, I'm on the record as being opposed to that in context. Sharks call me up and say, hey, what about Macklin Celebrini? And I'm like, hang on, let me think of, okay. I mean, that's why I say these things are never to be discussed or debated in black and white or in absolutes. You never know what can be offered. So you don't say, I'm not trading this person or that person. But I am going to bring this up where Rust and Rakell are concerned. And this is not a new stance on my part at all. Just feels like a fine time to restate it. If you keep trading out all of your top six wingers, and then Gino retires, you're left with Sid standing on an island that looks a lot like the one they show at the beginning of SpongeBob, in the intros, where it's like about 7 feet in diameter. That's Sid. And if you're doing that, you're now messing with not one, but two things. The first, you can pretty much forget about any idea of building around Sid while he's still Sid. Because at some point, you do have to cut things off and say, listen, whatever it is that anybody would envision as being contention, it's not going to be Sid and a whole ton of 21-year-olds. It's just not. Two, and this is the one that nobody wants to talk about because it's really easy to take advantage of Sid. I'm not telling you anything I wouldn't tell him. He's really, really easy when you hit him in the sympathy parts of his personality, when you hit him in the feels. But even he is going to look at what he's a part of and say, hang on a second, this isn't what you said. This just isn't it. You said Washington. You said doing what the Capitals did. The Capitals didn't just go shipping every available asset out the door. They didn't go shipping out Tom Wilson, John Carlson. You've already sent out the best, most compatible winger that Sid's ever had. And maybe that turns out to be a nice trade over time. We'll see. I think we all can agree right now that whatever comes of that trade, it's not going to be another Jake. But yeah, if you're sending out Rust and Rakell and then Gino retires, and that's asking Sid to mind the kindergarten, not to be part of one last push. Just throwing it out there. I know this subject tends to light some fires here. That's not my intent. It's just really important to both the present and the future of this franchise. We can get it as analytical as we want. We can get as cold-hearted as we want. But we also can't pretend that coming in and being the general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins can allow anyone the flexibility to mess with Sid. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Carl, who says, DK, I am not for trading Bryan Rust, Rickard, Rakell for the sake of just trading them. But if Kyle Dubas is attempting to acquire good young players, who on this current roster would be valuable enough to bring that type of player? Draft picks don't often bring good young players. I can't argue with that latter point, Carl. I just can't. It's one of the thoughts I've had throughout this, and anytime it's come up, I've kind of given it a side eye, because who says, yeah, you can have my semi-formed 21-year-old up-and-coming winger in exchange for a couple of picks, when I already have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to get out of the up-and-coming winger, and I have no idea what I'll get out of those picks. No matter what kind of volume you throw at somebody, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Those teams are going to be at relatively the same state of their respective metamorphosis. Now, there are exceptions. The Rutger McGroarty and Braden Yeager trade between Dubas and the Winnipeg Jets last year was one of those, in a way, because McGroarty is a year older, a year further advanced than Yeager, and simultaneously, not to be ignored, McGroarty really wasn't hitting it off with Winnipeg's management or their organizational depth chart or the way they handle youngsters, notably Cole Perfetti. So that strikes me as more of an isolated circumstance than one in which you can do reasonable building upon. So what's the answer? Where do you get the younger players? Well, as I see it, you do it in a couple of ways. One is the whole Phil Tomasino model. You just go around and chase other people's younger cast-offs. You're looking for second chance players in their early 20s. This would be especially applicable, I would think, to defensemen who take longer to develop at the NHL level. But the hit rate on this isn't exactly through the roof either. Witness, for example, that Dubas couldn't acknowledge in his interview with Taylor Haas over the weekend that he'd commit to keeping or trying to keep Tomasino from leaving through restricted free agency, or to tender him to prevent that from happening, to be more precise. That's not exactly an overflowing vote of confidence. The real answer, and I happen to know that Dubas sees this the same way because he expressed it in his year-ending press conference, and he did so with great gusto. It's the draft. It's the draft. When he cited Washington, he did so by pointing out, first and foremost, that the Capitals have just nailed class after class after class. And then those players have been brought up in a system that's built on a whole lot of recent success at the AHL level. So by the time they've gotten to Washington, they've gotten through battle-tested with flying colors and assimilated and all that other stuff. Well, that sounds awesome. It just doesn't happen quickly, which takes me back to the original subject today. Throwing it out there. This isn't simple stuff. It isn't. I appreciate the question, Carl. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final is tonight in Sunrise, and we'll be back with another one of these things tomorrow.